What did you like better, Jedi or The Empire Strikes Back?
Empire.
Blasphemy.
It's common knowledge Star Wars fans are some of the most passionate fans out there, and while growing up, myself, all my friends, and every Star Wars fan I've pretty much ever known have always argued about the franchise. Nothing spiteful, really. We just love to argue about our points and opinions, especially on something we are, again, very passionate about. Now, in the beginning, these arguments were normal types of arguments that most fandoms have. This character could beat that character, or this ship is faster than that ship. A lot of gear porn talk and what-if type scenarios. There's something more with Star Wars fans, though. It's much more complex, starting generations ago and becomes more and more complicated over decades. In this video, I'm going to try and break down why I think we, Star Wars fans, started to break, and why the rest of the world and newer fans think we are either out of our minds or just straight up toxic, which isn't the case with the majority of us.
Star Wars fans are prickly people, I found. You can't say anything correct if it somehow gets interpreted as saying something bad. I got asked who would win in a contest between the Starship Enterprise or the Millennium Falcon. And I said the Starship Enterprise would wipe its ass with the Millennium Falcon. It would just swat it out of the way. Yeah. It's got photon torpedoes, it's got deflector shields. It would be some annoyance. And so I wonder whether I should continue.
Two very important things that matter to me happened in 1977. One, I was born, and two, Star Wars was released in theaters. I don't need to tell you what happened after that. It wasn't just the movies that changed, or even how the world changed. A new type of fan was born. A whole wave of Generation X kids clung to Star Wars. Adulting kids saw the movie multiple times over and over, gaining $775 million worldwide. That is a ton of money today. Back in 1977, it was bonkers.
Capacity crowds have filled the 1,100 seats in the theater almost daily. In only 9 days, Star Wars has grossed more money than any movie in Dallas history.
The Empire's landing!
It's new AT-AT, the all-terrain armored transport from Kenner. Batteries not included.
The toys were where the serious money was at. The toys might not seem like a big deal at first glance. So what if it makes more money than the movies ever will? Well, that kind of money has influence. And that kind of influence can alter a story, a character, a whole damn franchise. But I'll touch back on that later. One of my earliest memories is seeing Return of the Jedi in theaters. As a 6-year-old, seeing that movie changed me. I wanted the path of the Jedi, as did many of us. All three of the movies did phenomenal, and for the most part got good praise overall. So, if it was just those three movies, you really wouldn't be watching this video right now, because we would be like most other fandoms in our normal arguments.
She's beautiful, she loves Star Wars.
Whoa, what's her take on Ewoks?
Loves them.
Oh, good. I don't know why people are so cynical about Ewoks. The rebellion would have failed without the Ewoks.
However, the trouble started in 1997 when Lucas re-released the original trilogy with significant changes. Hello, editing Brandon here. I just wanted to say that it wasn't just 1997, a lot of the changes did start in 2011.
McClunky.
Look, I don't think any fan is against it being remastered to look or sound more crisp. That isn't where Lucas wanted to stop though. He added stuff, changed backgrounds on many scenes, and even literally changed scenes with CGI. Some of these changes were subtle, like how the destruction of Alderaan or the Death Star looked when they exploded. And some of them were right down controversial, like Greedo shooting at Han first. All in all, there were 110 changes made total between all three movies. Now, Lucas had reasons he said as to why he made the changes. Technology had gotten better, so he wanted to go back and make the movies look better. As for the most controversial change, he said that he had Greedo shoot first, so kids knew Han did not have a choice to shoot Greedo, etc, etc. Personally, for me, one of the things that bugged me the most about the changes is when he removed Sebastian Shaw and replaced him with Hayden Christensen as the Force Ghost of Anakin at the end of Return of the Jedi. I just didn't like it, and I thought it was kind of disrespectful, to be honest with you, and it didn't really make any sense. I understand what he said about it, but what are you going to keep going back and make changes when you think of something different? So let me just start off saying these changes did not bode well for the most part with the older fans, and this is where the cracks started showing, and them looking suspiciously at Lucas while losing faith in his integrity as an artist. So let me rewind for a second and remark to Lucas's reasoning for the changes. Well, like I mentioned before, I don't think anyone is against remastering the film, like I said, making it sound or look more crisp. But changing it all together? Would you keep changing it as more newer and newer technology comes out? Will it ever be what it originally was? And no, this is not the same as deleted scenes or even alternate endings. Those are extras, not intertwined into the original story. I can't help but almost think if George was working on other movies, he may have been just too busy making new artwork, movies, to keep going back to his old stuff. Then there's the issue with Han shooting first. George forgot a whole generation watched Han smoke Greedo, and we turned out just fine. Stop making these kids soft, Mr. Lucas. So, back to the crack starting the show. Lucas making these changes began making original fans' eyes twitch. The new batch of fans, millennials, were being introduced to Star Wars when these changes to the original trilogy were being re-released in the theaters. So they were not privy to how the movies were before. While not too serious at first, this is where the fire started. The original fans did not dig these changes. They loved the movies just fine how they were, and now there were people that liked this new stuff. Lucas's art had already been in the world for 2 decades, along with the next thing we'll bring up in just a second, and that is the expanded universe, which Disney threw out. The point I'm getting across, which is important, is Lucas created a division in the fans at this point right here. Arguments were not stable anymore due to the art itself changing. This was confusing to fans. Oh, but it got a whole lot crazier in 2 years. I remember almost missing the trailer for The Phantom Menace. Back then, if you wanted to see a trailer, you had to go to the movies. After seeing the trailer, let me tell you, I didn't know exactly what the hell was going on, but I fell in love as soon as I saw it. For so long, we had all kinds of interesting stories from books and comic books and games, but now, here was a live-action movie. I don't know exactly what everyone expected, but as much praise as it got hate too. There were all kinds of different things that annoyed fans. But 3 things kind of stood out when it came to the prequels more than anything. 1 was the midichlorians. I didn't quite understand why a lot of fans were upset at this for a long time. I always just went with it without too much inquiry. I even thought it was a neat way to explain the Force. But it finally hit me why other fans had issues with it. And it was because in the original trilogy, Obi-Wan explained that the Force was more of an ethereal type thing. And the fans knew in the prequels it was just stuff Lucas added on later. You would think that Obi-Wan would have mentioned midichlorians to Luke, maybe even had a device that could have tested it. I still don't really have that big of an issue with it, honestly, but I understand where other fans, think it's stupid. 2. The acting and dialogue. This is something that bleeds through in all of the prequels, but we got our first taste of it here. Lucas really needed help with the script, and he should have done a better job, with the directing on the acting. Not all of the performances and dialogue were terrible, but enough of it was to leave an impression. Number 3, Jar Jar.
Oh, muy, I love you!
Here's the thing about Jar Jar. He was a very annoying character. People that defend Jar Jar always like to say he was made for kids, and this is why Lucas created him. Look, I don't care. No other character is more annoying than that thing, and saying he is like that for children is not only insulting to children, but it is a family movie, not a kids movie. Being a family movie, that means there are adults, or anyone older than 3 years old, that lose their mind when they gotta sit there and listen to Jar Jar talk.
Terrible things to me if me going back there.
Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith had their fair share of issues as well. There were also continuity hiccups made by Lucas himself that were not explained unless you read comics or books, which is hard to say what the hell is canon anymore anyways, but we'll get to that. This, combined with all kinds of other things like I have described and many I haven't, led to a lot of fans being pissed off at Lucas. Some people criticize the fans for this, but you know what? Fans kept Lucas rich for 2 decades, reading the comics and books, games and toys and merch, and poured love into his stories and creations. They could bitch about it if they wanted to. Fans do it all the time, and it's not because they hate it, it's because they love it. I am not saying all of the hate was justified by any means, but there is a lot of stuff that George Lucas brought upon himself. The prequels did something else that would eventually butt heads with the fans. They created a whole generation of new fans. These fans were young when they saw those prequels and then got older and watched the Clone Wars and Rebels. Older fans and younger fans would clash about what movies were better or what Skywalker was better and so on, like fandoms always did. They could be passionate, but we all still loved Star Wars. We all still had tons of lore, and eventually most of us still bonded together because no matter what, we loved Jedi and Sith and lightsabers and the Force. We all still had Star Wars, and even though we all fought like we were all siblings, things felt pretty much okay. Then everything changed like none of us could have imagined. On October 30th, 2012, Disney acquired Lucasfilm. Additionally, the agreement included Lucasfilm's other properties, such as the Indiana Jones franchise, Willow, and Industrial Lights and Magic, the visual effects company that Lucas founded. There were a lot of mixed emotions about this. Many, including myself, thought it was a great idea. We were told Lucas would be involved, they had money they could pour into it, and Kathleen Kennedy promised to take good care of it. Many fans didn't trust Disney though. I think for most of us at this point, hindsight is 20/20. Disney destroyed other Lucas creations, but we'll just stick to Star Wars for this video. The first sign of real division from Disney was in 2014 when they threw out the Expanded Universe, or EU for short, so they could change and do whatever they wanted to do. It seemed like it was almost a 50-50 split amongst us. I was on the side that wished they would just leave it alone and do their best to work around it. Understanding some changes would have to be retconned once in a while depending on the severity and if the story is important enough for the changes. My reasoning being is we have all had this canon built up in our heads for decades. Stories and characters that we grew a love for and that meant something to us, and that we kept the franchise alive with that love. And now, to have Disney just scrap it as not canon just didn't sit well with me. However, I did understand my counterpart's arguments also. The main reason I'm telling you this is because this is yet another thing in the long history of Star Wars that is a major shift that fans disagree on, and it being major shift is something that the fans can't disagree on like normal fan disagreements. The second big thing that pissed fans off was Disney didn't want Lucas involved with their projects. This was quite a surprise, and it did seem like Lucas was not hip to it, but he went with it. Next came the movies. The Force Awakens got most of us excited, myself included. I won't get into dissecting any of these movies very much, we have all heard that stuff many times. I will say though, with The Force Awakens, the OG characters were not handled properly or with respect, and Rey was a little too OP towards the end. As for the other two, well, the sequel trilogy became a clusterfuck. No coherent timeline, egotistical directors who think their farts smell like roses, a lack of respect for the fanbase, a lack of respect for the prequels, and so on. The Last Jedi especially tore the fanbase apart, and Star Wars fans being labeled as toxic reached new heights. Part of this new divide was something else the sequels did that the prequels did. It created a whole new generation of fans. Now, the prequel fans were feeling a similar feeling that the original trilogy fans felt many years ago. There was some differences though. There was a new type of divide that never happened before and began to form as time went on. Star Wars fans and Disney Star Wars fans.
The Falcon! The Millennium Falcon! It's the Millennium Falcon! Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh god! I gotta play with my Star Wars toys! I've had this for years, I haven't opened it! I fucking love Star Wars! Fucking Star Wars!
This divide came to a feverish pitch after each Disney Plus show with the exception of The Mandalorian seasons 1 and 2. The divide between these two fans is becoming so divided now to the point where Star Wars fans are becoming apathetic and leaving, and there is praise from the Disney Star Wars fans for the shows and contempt for fans on the other side. Now, what I'm about to say is important and very relevant to all of this. Star Wars fans always bicker and argue. We have favorite movies, we have favorite characters, we have decades of lore behind us. We're passionate because we love it. So when you hear shit like this...
Because, like, I know the dumbest argument that people have had about the show about Kayadi-Mandi, and I'm like, here's the thing. It was deemed not canon anymore.
We think that you are the fake fan. And we think that you are only into Star Wars because it's cool and hip. We think that you are the grifter. That you are hijacking an IP that decades ago you would have made fun of us for being Star Wars fans, calling it childish or nerdy.
It's people like you who put me in this sort of pedestal that makes me feel like I can't say what I want to say when it comes to Star Wars, and it drives me absolutely fucking insane.
As far as the Ki-Adi-Mundi issue goes, it's like a lot of other things Disney has done. It is something that shouldn't need to be changed and shouldn't be changed. If you can't write your story without needing to change canon, yes, his age was canon, just a lower tier canon, which is also stupid, but then write a different story. The point is, this woman interviewing Leslie Headland does not respect lore and does not respect that the fans who have grown up with these stories over decades care about it. And here we are in 2024. There are Disney Star Wars fans that love everything Disney has done.
It's been a long time since I killed a Jedi. Your lightsaber blade is red.
And even the stuff they might not like very much, they can live with it. Whether they can keep the franchise alive, only time will tell. As for the other side,
George Lucas raped our childhood. George Lucas raped our childhood. George Lucas raped our childhood.
some still are holding on just barely, but most of us have just given up, and the numbers don't lie. Even though Disney released a 67-page presentation singing the praises of its chief executive Bob Iger in a bid to convince stockholders to side with him in a battle with activist investors, giving the impression that Disney's Star Wars trilogy generated a 2.9 times return on the purchase of Lucasfilm, as that figure is presented next to a timeline of key events in the production company's history. However, buried in the fine print is the revelation that the purchase price of Lucasfilm isn't even included in that return on investment calculation, and it also forecasts the revenue that is expected that the Star Wars movies, merchandise, DVDs, and Blu-rays to generate over a 10-year period, and based the calculation on that too. In other words, Disney hasn't actually received the revenue that it has used to calculate the return on its investments. According to Forbes, analysis of more than 800 pages of company filings has revealed that the cost of making Disney's 5 Star Wars movies hit a total of $2.1 billion. So that's still about $2.5 billion short of what they paid for it. There are other numbers involved in all of this, including toys merch revenue, marketing costs, and cost revenue of the parks. Even more interesting, Disney lost $134.2 million at the box office with Indiana Jones, and Lucasfilm's streaming series based on the 1988 fantasy Willow was canceled, despite Disney pouring more than $100 million into it. Being a longtime fan of Star Wars currently is mind-boggling.
The power of many. No!
And we will always have passionate debates about it, but it has gone to places now run by people who either don't care about Star Wars or want to use it for their own purpose. It has gone beyond debates. You just don't debate when you're in apathy. My prediction is Disney will eventually either reboot Star Wars or sell it. I read an article not long ago saying Gen Z isn't a real big fan of Star Wars or the MCU. I don't know if it is those two specifically or a broader lack of interest. I really wanted to make this video not just because I'm an older Star Wars fan, but I think we get a bad rap and are misunderstood. This fan base is made of multiple generations, has seen movie scenes changed, story decisions based on toy sale predictions, seen the Force turned into a science project, and almost mutant-like powers instead of a mystical and limited power. Seen decades of canon changed, seen our heroes treated like shit, watched the brand itself changed, and more recently been called toxic, racist, sexist, etc. Star Wars fans have always been passionate and kept Star Wars alive, and will always love some part of Star Wars. It is clear that is not who Disney wants. Those fans have slowly been pushed away for a decade now, so now it is up to the Disney Star Wars fan base to keep it alive. I just don't know what kind of fan base that will be.
Because that doesn't make any sense. If people can do that, why does anyone have a gun?
Oh, because you have to have the reflexes of a Force Master?
Oh, so you have to be magic then. That's dumb.
Oh, okay, the Force is dumb, but you beaming people all over the place isn't.
It's science! We convert a person or object into